Neal here, Artistic Director and Conductor of your Dayton Philharmonic Orchestra with Piano Bench Chat number 38. If you were with me for number 37, that music I just played you probably sounds familiar, because what I was talking about last week was this juxtaposition between two great themes that Tchaikovsky wrote in the last year of his life. One, the optimistic and happy and everything is great scale in the great grand pas de deux from Act 2 of Nutcracker, where the climax is we have this descending major scale that the whole piece is built on, and juxtaposed with that the last movement of the Pathétique Symphony with that incredibly sad descending minor scale. And I mentioned last week that while I was really talking about that juxtaposition of these two things, there was something else about that Pathétique Symphony theme that was of interest, and maybe I'd come back to it. Well, I'm coming back to it right now. And it has to do with that melody. So the melody we hear, and I'm looking at the orchestra score, and you think, well, who's going to play that melody? It's the strings who play that figure at the very beginning. And so who's going to play the melody? What's going to be the first violins? And here's the first violin part at the beginning of the last movement of the Pathétique Symphony. What? It's supposed to be dee da da dee da da, but they're playing. Well, that's not the melody. Maybe the second violins have the melody. So we look at the second violin part, and here it is. That's not the melody. What the hell's going on here? What's going on here is that Tchaikovsky is playing a very complicated and mysterious game where nobody plays the melody, but the melody simply emerges. Now, one of the things that you have to realize, because otherwise this game makes absolutely no sense, is that nowadays, well, not nowadays, because everything's different with COVID, and we're playing at the Philharmonic when we perform our streaming programs, we're playing in a kind of in the round setup. But normally, remember normally? Typically, most American orchestras arrange the string section so that if the conductor is standing facing the orchestra, the first violins are to their immediate left. Second violins are a little bit upstage, but to the left, and then the violas are there and the cellos are there. But in Tchaikovsky's time, in Russian and a lot of orchestras in Europe, there was a completely different setup where the two sections of violins, the first violins and second violins, were arranged kind of in stereo. So the conductor would have the first violins to their left, the second violins to the right, and the violas and cellos in the middle, so that you sometimes would have the first violins and second violins answering back and forth between each other across the stage. And that's what Tchaikovsky is doing here. The melody emerges from the combination of the two parts, the first violins and the second violins, where if you're looking at the stage, you would hear, in theory, at least on the page, you hear those notes coming from the right, left, right, left, right, left. So that's what it looks like on the page. But this is actually a pretty controversial question, because there are acousticians who will say, yes, you will hear the melody flipping back and forth from one side of the stage to the other. And there are acousticians who say, that's crazy. The brain is going to put it together into a melody, and you're just going to hear the melody despite the fact that it's going back and forth. We can test that a little bit. I created on my computer with music notation software and sort of not very beautiful synthesized sounds. What it would sound like, or what it does sound like, up close to the conductor. And I've panned everything so that, and this also goes on in the viola and cello part too, with different notes. But so that when you hear this, especially if you're listening with headphones, you will hear the second violins coming from your right ear and the first violins coming from the left ear. And you may actually hear this kind of unsettled nature. And that would sound like this. And here I've done it so that all you're hearing is the melody, and you should hear it flipping back and forth, right, left, right, left, right, left. So that would sound like this. And when you put them together, of course, you get this continuous melody which comes out of that bouncing back and forth. So I'm not going to get into the acoustical arguments over that. I listened to a podcast about a year ago where someone really delved into it and did all these simulations, and it's hard to know. But definitely Tchaikovsky wanted this melody at the beginning of the Pathétique finale to sound very emotionally turbulent and very unsettled, because it is a very unsettled piece of music. And I think he hit on this kind of brilliant solution of writing a melody that wasn't really there and creating this kind of strange feeling. And it really works. It especially works if you divide the violin sections on stage. And even though I grew up with all the violins on the left and the violas and cello, I'm used to that. But whenever we play the Tchaikovsky Pathétique Symphony, I shuffle the orchestra. So it goes first violins, violas, cellos, and then second violins on the opposite side, so that you get that kind of unsettled feeling. My personal sense is, standing on the podium, I can hear it because I can clearly hear the notes coming from different places. When you sit out in the hall, it all sort of comes together, and I bet a lot of people would never notice what Tchaikovsky is doing. But it's one of the great unsolved mysteries, and if I ever have a chance to have dinner with a dead person from the past, I think I'm going to ask Tchaikovsky, and I'm going to talk to him about this. So what was really going on? But what was really going on was Tchaikovsky was writing fabulous music. It's just some of the most incredible music there in the last year of his life. Both incredibly sad and passionate music like the Pathétique Symphony, and just amazingly fantasy, beauty, everything great music in the Nutcracker. And those, I guess, were the two sides of his personality, and especially the two sides of his personality in the last year of his life. As I've been saying the last couple of weeks, I'm going to run back upstairs and return to the Nutcracker stream. It's coming along. You'll be able to see it soon, premiering on December 11th. The Dayton Philharmonic performing the Nutcracker score, and 25 years worth of amazing pictures of 3 different Dayton Ballet productions. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's not going to be like having a real live Nutcracker with a live orchestra and live dancers. We'll get back to that as soon as we can, but maybe it'll give us our Nutcracker fix for this year. Take care, stay healthy, stay safe, and see you next week for, yikes, it'll be Piano Bench Chat number 39. See you next week.